Russia launched a massive overnight attack on Ukraine using more than 600 drones and more than 30 missiles. Ukrainian authorities said 34 of the missiles and 587 drones were shot down by air defense systems. At least 3 people have been reported killed, including a 4-year-old child killed in the central Zaimotomir region. Correspondents said the attack, which included both air and ground-based cruise missiles, was repelled in part by Ukrainian aircraft, anti-aircraft missiles, electronic warfare, and unmanned systems. They are warning residents to continue to follow safety precautions because the attack is still ongoing. In the meantime, investigators are exploring multiple motives in the killing of a Russian general, Fanil Sarvarov, in a car bomb explosion in Moscow, with officials suggesting Ukrainian involvement in the attack. The attack adds to a series of high-profile deaths of military and political figures in recent years. The explosive placed under his vehicle detonated on Monday morning. Sarvarov led Russia's Armed Forces Operational Training Department and had previously served in Syria. President Vladimir Putin was reportedly informed immediately. Russian authorities noted several recent killings of senior officers in Moscow, many linked to explosives, highlighting ongoing tensions since the start of Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says U.S.-led efforts to broker an end to the war with Russia are making quite solid progress, with initial draft proposals meeting most of Kyiv's core demands. Speaking in Kiev, Zelensky said nearly 90% of Ukraine's positions have been reflected in the talks, while acknowledging that neither side was likely to achieve all its objectives as negotiations continue under U.S. mediation.
I have seen the initial drafts again, and honestly, nearly 90% of the annexes that matter to us, what our army in Ukraine can count on after such guarantees are signed, and how strong we can be, are included. Overall, it looks quite solid at this stage. These are the results of our work and our military's efforts. And importantly, not only from our side. Why? Because when drafts come only from our side, we may want many things that don't necessarily materialize. Here the work is joint, ours and the United States. That suggests we are very close to a real outcome. A first draft of an agreement on Ukraine's recovery and economic strategy has also been developed. The basic block of all documents, in my view, is ready. There are some things we are probably not ready for, and I'm sure there are things the Russians are not ready for either. The Americans have stayed on to negotiate with the other side, with Russian representatives. They will talk and then provide us feedback. They have received all the information from us.
Well, for an assessment of the latest developments around Ukraine, I'm joined now on the line from London by the author and international affairs analyst, Dr. Marek Laskiewicz. Glad to have you join us. Let's start with the issue of the killing of the General Sarvarov. No one has claimed responsibility as yet. What more can you tell us about this latest incident?
It would appear to be Ukrainian work again, as far as one can tell. There have been several such assassinations over the years, and basically that's the culprit would appear every time. It's true that there was the plane crash with Wagner that Putin seemed to have caused, but apart from that, these high-profile ones in Moscow are Ukrainians, as far as one can tell. It's interesting they don't claim responsibility. I think it's just to give more insecurity, feel more insecurity for the Russians. That's why they don't. But I imagine the police will eventually come to this conclusion.
One theory being investigated, though, is that the bomb was planted with the involvement of, just like you said, with the involvement of Ukrainian intelligence services. But Ukraine has not commented yet.
No, it's odd. But I think their strategy is simply by not claiming responsibility to increase the insecurity feeling amongst the Russian top ranks, and and they're perhaps hoping that someone might blame Putin, that X, Y, or Z who was killed out of favor with Putin, like Wagner, and that's why they haven't claimed. But I don't think there's any doubt there's the Ukrainians behind this.
Listen to this. The investigative committee has opened an investigation into murder and illegal trafficking of explosive. This is looking like they're tinkering with the idea of looking inwards. Is it possible it could be an inside job? And who would likely be responsible if it is, and why?
Well, it depends what you mean by an inside job. If you mean that there are different factions amongst the Russians, for example, or Putin's favor, then that, as far as one can tell, is not actually responsible for the various assassinations, since there's no obvious other parties involved in that sense. But if you mean that there are people within the Russian administration, within the Russian military, who are actually working for the Ukrainians, and that is entirely possible. I don't think, though, it's necessary, because the Ukrainians speak perfect Russian, many of them, and they Russian very well. And so as a result, I don't think that is the most logical theory. As far as one can tell, really, they simply have the free run of Russia because they're hard to track down because they speak Russian so well. And therefore, that would suffice as the easiest explanation for these assassinations.
That they speak fluent Russia, and so the question of infiltration could be there. On the peaceful resolution, what do you make of the comments by Zelensky that nearly 90% of Ukraine's positions have been reflected in what he calls solid progress so far?
Well, it seems to be that there's an element of ping pong about this. Trump goes to Russia and comes back with a set of solid Russian demands. He goes to Ukraine, Ukraine changes them, and then he has solid Ukrainian demands, which because the Russian ones were unacceptable. So he goes back to Russia and finds that these are now unacceptable and changes them back into Russian ones, and goes off to Ukraine, who says they're unacceptable and changes them into their demands. There is an element, if you like, of how can I put it, of Americans working with whomever it is that president they're working with and agreeing to much, only to find that the other side is uninterested and still interested only in its own views. So there's nothing new about this. The central problem is that neither Russia nor Ukraine are willing to compromise. That's the point. And therefore, there's nothing likely to come out of these talks. But certainly Trump is doing the best he can to at least give some sort of shuttle diplomacy that he's doing here some life.
I mean, Zelensky has said he has acknowledged that neither side was likely to achieve all its objectives as negotiations continue under U.S. mediation. While discussions for peace go on, there's been continuous attack from both sides, particularly or especially from the Russians. How is this impacting the peace discussions ongoing as yet?
Well, Putin has made it quite clear that either he gets what he wants by diplomacy or he's going to do it by military means. And therefore, from his point of view, the discussions are not at all what the Ukrainian president said. As far as I can see, Putin is not prepared to compromise on any of his core positions. And therefore, as a result, it's not, as Zelensky said, neither side will get what it wants. Rather, Putin knows exactly what he wants, and that's what he's going for. And all these missiles and drones simply underline the fact that, as he stated, if he can't get it by talks, he'll get it by military means.
What you're saying looks like the Russian leader is not particularly enamored by the peace talks, not particularly interested in it, particularly seeing that he can get what he wants through military might. That's what you're saying, is it?
Yes, and there's another aspect to it as well. He's not enamored by the peace talks because when he set out his 28-point plan with the Americans, that is the plan he wants. Now what he's finding is that the Americans are with the Ukrainians, heads down, producing completely different versions of many of these points. And therefore, I don't think he's really all that interested, because either he gets his 28 points or something similar to that, or he's going to carry on fighting. I mean, that's what he's made clear. And so therefore, he has no real interest in what is happening in between Russia and Ukraine in their talks right now.
You then say that all this is beating about the bush is just a waste of time. Is it right to say that from, what we're discussing? Is it right to say that?
Well, yes, to be quite honest, the chances that President Trump will succeed are minimal. There is, however, one way, and he has sort of done it. The person he can pressurize is Zelensky. He can't really pressurize Putin a lot. I mean, Putin's had sanctions thrown at him. He's had supplies going to Ukraine. Short of outright war, there's not much he can do. On the other hand, he can pressurize Ukraine, and that's what he was going for a few weeks ago when he said he wants to reply quickly and that Ukraine has to either agree or else America withdraw. And so this is where I think he's got an opportunity of reaching some sort of peace settlement. But as things stand, Zelensky has stated, in effect, that on the contrary, his changes to the Russian proposals are coming through, that the 90% of what he wants is in there. And as a result, Trump can't get anywhere because the moment he agrees to Zelensky's proposals, it's Putin. So their view, and what you've said is a waste of time is correct unless Trump decides to pressurize Zelensky. And if he doesn't do that, then there will be a waste of time.
Then, could that be the reason why Trump's predecessor did not want to bother going to any kind of talks with Putin, because they understand how he reasons?
Yes. Well, Biden made it quite clear he was entirely on Ukraine's side. And also he stated he wanted to see Russia so lose the war that there would be a threat again. There's been sort of implications of Russia being broken up or whatever was in Biden's head. And he certainly had no intention at all of indulging in any peace talks which weren't on Ukrainian terms, which are incidentally the terms that America would like to see, because America under Biden wanted to smash Russia. Now Trump is different. But by being different, he hopes for a peace process, which has been very hard to achieve without pressurizing. The only country he can, of course, is Ukraine. Whereas Biden, of course, didn't see much point in that and therefore made no attempt at any peace talks. He let Zelensky roam around with his demands. And the demands were, of course, unrealizable, such as Putin being tried as a war criminal. And therefore waste his time in the sense that Trump is doing. No.
All right, interesting. We just keep our fingers crossed and see, watch as events develop on this, those peace talks, as it were. Thank you so much. Always interesting to listen to your submissions. Author Dr. Marek Laskiewicz, their international affairs correspondent. Thank you.